How many books do you have now?
6.
Do you remember the names of them all? In order?
Totally Fulfilled, Be a Real Estate Millionaire, Your Town, Your Profits, Real Estate Profits from Home, Millionaire Success Habits, Underdog Advantage.
Yes, I got the last one.
Yeah.
Which is your favorite of all your books?
It's usually the one I just got done with, but the 2, hands down, Millionaire Success Habits and Underdog Advantage. Because it's fun giving people the foundation of stuff, you know? It's like, you know this because you do so well in your books. It's like so many times people will give the tactics, but if the mindset's not there, it doesn't work. So it's that non-going balance between mindset and tactics. Yeah. So I love weaving the 2 together.
And there you'll use just like the platform of here's all the mindset for all the things.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about, I know everyone's got a different writing process, and I wish when I first wrote my first book, I asked more questions about this because I didn't know. And I dove in and it was like, it was so painful to start writing.
The most painful experience of my life was writing my first book.
Yeah, every time. So I'm curious, like, what was your writing process like on the first one, and then how has it changed or evolved? Like, how do you write now? So
my first one, one thing I remember, this is a true story. When I wrote my first book, you're gonna think I'm lying. I had never read an entire book in my life, cover to cover. Never, not one.
And you got to write one now?
And I write one. And I felt like a complete phony because I just had a message to share, but I wasn't a writer, and I had been listening to audios nonstop by then, but never read a book. And it was just such an intimidating process. And I didn't have any structure, and I didn't interview anybody. I looked at a couple books, and I remember I laid out the chapters, and I'll tell you the difference. I know the first one, I felt like I had to start on page 1 and write a linear book. And that's what was like, it was so much work because I would keep going back like, no, maybe that shouldn't be first. I didn't think of taking all the pieces of the puzzle and like laying them out and then go,
do the parts.
Oh, let me just fill these, write these and then stick them where they belong. So that was painful. And then it was even more painful. I get done and I hire an editor and I get her on the phone and she's so fired up. She's like, oh my God, I want to work with you. You have more enthusiasm than anybody. And I fly to North Carolina where she lives and I hand her the manuscript and she's like, I can't wait to read this. And like 4 hours later, she calls me, she goes, Dean, completely different tone of voice. She's like, Dean, I don't know how to put this. It doesn't need an edit. I'm like, she's like, I'm that good. She's like, it's not a book. She goes, there's a few rules you can break. There's rules to writing a book and you can break a few. She goes, you broke every one of them. She's like, this is a 290-page conversation. I can't edit this. You need to hire a real writer. And yeah, that was fun. I felt really good about myself. I don't know if you still have those limits. So I don't know if you have those limiting beliefs inside you still, but I still have that, like, you're not smart enough, you were in special ed, you didn't go to college, writing books is for smart people, you're kind of dumb.
You haven't even read a book yet.
Yeah, exactly. I just sat on it for like, I don't remember, a month or two, and I almost deleted it. I was almost like, why would I even think that? And then, you know how that goes. There's a certain amount of time you change the story of like, nah, she was wrong. I just want to empower people's lives. I'm not a writer, but I got a good story. So I hired a writer just to clean it up. And that book hit the New York Times bestseller list without a bestseller campaign. And it didn't sell a lot of copies. I'd love to say it sold millions of copies. It did. Probably, I don't even know what it sold, but it happened to sell a lot in a 1 week period. And somebody like took a picture and said, "Oh my God, you're a New York Times bestselling author." It's like,
right. Did you know what it was at the time, or you're just like,
I kind of, but not really.
Yeah.
But now I can say, I'm Dean Graziosi, New York Times bestselling author. Yeah.
You ever send one back to that editor and be like, "It's just so you know."
Yeah, just so you know. Yeah, so that was the first experience of my writing a book.
It's crazy. My grandpa is a writer. He wrote history books, like books about Columbus and all these things. And I remember he told me, it's like, the book you write and then you send it to the editor, the book you get back is not your same book. And he's like, he talked about how emotionally hard that process was to get it back and be like, that's not exactly my words. I've always, first time I sent a book to an editor, I had a similar thing. That she edited the first chapter and sent it back, and I was like, this doesn't sound like me. She's like, yeah, but it's grammatically correct. And I'm like, I'd rather it sound like me than be grammatically correct. And so I went back and undeleted a lot of her stuff. And luckily, I didn't get an advance for my book. I didn't have someone saying, well, we paid you for this. It was more like, all right, you're going to fail. But I just I want it to sound like me. And I've tried to maintain that voice throughout all the books. Yeah. And the editors know, like, doesn't have to be perfect as long as you don't ruin parts of it that I think are essential to the book.
And the best example, fast forward a little bit, Millionaire Success Habits, that one was completely my voice from start to finish. And I'll tell that process on how I get my voice even more so. And I look back and it was even more just a conversation than any book, and it's my best-selling book to date, right? It's almost at 1 million copies. I've never had more reviews, never had more feedback. So screw all those rules.
Yeah. So what was your process when you wrote that one then? In fact, I'm gonna go back to the first one first. So the first one, did you do Microsoft Word, or was it?
Yeah.
Or was it? What was the?
Microsoft Word.
Microsoft Word.
Yeah, literally typing and I'm a two-finger typer, and I have to look. So every time I write a book, I'm in agony, my neck, because I'm looking down, typing.
You still?
I still do.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You'd think I would learn by now.
You should make that a big deal, in your ads. I type this with 2 fingers. That's how important this message is.
Yeah. Still type with 2 fingers.
That's
I'm
amazing.
fast now, but it's still 2 fingers.
That's amazing. So now that you wrote that one there, and then obviously evolved each time, but with Millionaire Success Habits, where's the evolution? What did that?
So I think this is the most important thing. I still don't love writing books. It's painstaking because you're putting your life on paper, and every time I don't know about you, but when I'm done, and it goes to the editor, and it comes back, and I read it, I'm like, I can make that paragraph better. And then if I fix that, I'm like, it changes the context of the next page.
Right, the whole
and then I'll tell you what I did. Millionaire Success Habits. I hired a writer to work with me, and I gave him a lot of my content. If I did an hour presentation on stage about how selling isn't evil, and that when you love what you do so much and you feel like you're doing a disservice to the world, it's a great foundation to turn you into someone who loves sales. And let me tell you the process. And I start up high and then go all the way down to the strategy, mindset, strategy, tactical, right? So I give him that hour presentation where I had a standing ovation for 10 minutes and said, just extract that and make it a chapter. So I tried to take a shortcut, and I gave them all these chapters, and they put it together, and we were literally 3 months away from when I told everybody I was releasing it, and I got the book, and I just hated it. I absolutely hated it. And what forced me to have this, what I'm going to share with you now, was that I had to write that. I wrote that whole book from beginning to end, really in about 45 days. Wow. A year to get to something I just threw away. I paid the fee. The guy's fee was ridiculous. I paid the fee because I didn't want to argue with him. And here's what I did. So we all have, and maybe you've taught something like this, but this is what I created, writing a book quick, and it's exactly how I wrote the Underdog Advantage. Is we all have riffs that you call it whatever you want, things that you love talking about. If I said, Russell, right now, tell me the art behind a good ad, or tell me the science behind a funnel, or I've heard so many of your great riffs.
Frameworks.
Your frameworks,
yeah,
right? Frameworks, riffs, whatever you want to call it, right? When I love watching your epiphany. I used it in one of my shows because after you said it, it stuck with me because I remember I had an epiphany, right? If I said, do you tell me what it's like once you're that epiphany bridge come in and you can go, right? So what I think of is, what are the 7 to 12 frameworks or riffs that I love talking about that should be in this book? Yeah. So I identify them. Let's say the Underdog Advantage. I knew I wanted to talk about the power of you can't. Most underdogs are told by everybody, you don't have the money, you don't have the time, you're not wrong. But underdogs know how to turn that and make it into fuel, right? Underdogs usually lack resources and learn to be resourceful. So I said, I love talking about how underdogs are massively, are resourceful, are relentlessly resourceful, right? Underdogs know how to turn desperation into persuasion. So I came up with these things that I love talking about, and literally they were in my phone. I would literally just go in my notes and I wrote down all the chapter heads. So they're really my riffs, but they're going to become my chapters. So then, instead of saying, okay, these are my chapters, let me start writing, what I did is I'd pick a chapter on a day I felt inspired. And I would take my voice memo and I would record. I've done it on the side of the road when I felt inspired. I did one of the chapters. I was in the shower one day thinking about something, and I'm like, oh my God. And I got out of the shower in a towel and I recorded for an hour that chapter, right? So I over a few months, I recorded every chapter. And as I would record them, I'd send them out to get them transcribed. Right? So I recorded them, got them transcribed, got back, and then I'd go clean up, because talking is different than writing. I'd clean it up, and then I had this piece of the puzzle, and I didn't know where instead of trying to decide to do them all in order, I just had all these pieces. So once I recorded all 7 or 8 chapters, they were transcribed and cleaned up. They were like, all the pieces of the puzzle were in front of me. And I remember one day on a whiteboard, it's like, oh man, you want resourcefulness after this, and this one should go here. And underdogs don't have to care what other people think. Oh, I love that. I actually go here. And then I just pieced them around. And then all of a sudden I had like 7 chapters in a row. And then my job was to weave the first chapter into the second, right? So I'd take the end of chapter 1, I'd change it so it flowed into chapter 2, and then I would flow it into the chapter, and it was pretty much there.
Pulls people through the whole book.
Right, and then pull people in, and the last part of each chapter I wanted to write like sales copy to keep pulling them through the book, right? And then when those were done, I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but it was the easiest book I ever wrote. Then when those were done, I wrote the introduction because it made sense, and then the conclusion made sense. And it was just, compared to any other book I've ever written, those Millionaire Success Habits, and they were easier. They're still not. I was still working with a writer. I'd get done and send it to him, and he'd like, this isn't fit. And so it was great to have advice. But as far as the easiest book ever was this last one.
So one thing, I think a lot of people, they sit down and their thought is, I'm gonna write a book, and they spend like a year writing the book, going deep into the concepts, and they get it done, and then they're like, all the pain of the work is done. Like, okay, how am I gonna sell
now
this?
all I gotta do is sell it.
I'm curious to hear your process, but I know for me, as I'm writing the book, the whole time I'm thinking about
the hook,
like
the
this
message.
cover image. Like we spent 2 days to get this picture. Like I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about the funnel and what the upsells and down and like the cross sells and the box set, and like as I'm writing, I'm thinking all this stuff. And then by the time the book's done, like my whole team's like they want to go build a funnel. I'm like, then they ask, they're trying to like brainstorm the funnel. I'm like, no, like
I got it.
I spent 2 years brainstorming. Like I don't need your opinion. I know exactly. And I remember when. I think it was one of the first times we hung out, and you showed me your studio. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the studio. And it was before your book had launched. And you're like, yeah, we shot an infomercial for this book, and like, and it's killing it. I'm like, oh cool, like when does this book launch? And you're like, well, I need to go write it still. I'm like, what do you mean you need to go write it? Like, you just filmed the infomercial. And you were like, no, I filmed it first to make sure people were gonna buy it before and it was so, I was backwards in most people's brain, but I was just like, oh my gosh, I totally get that, because you know how much goes into it. It's like you want to make sure that the market wants it
if
first.
you can't sell it, even people on my team will come to me with an idea, and I'm like, sell me on it. And if they can't sell it, right, what's the sense of doing it, right? So Millionaire Success Habits, I filmed the infomercial with Larry King before the book was written. And then I ran ads money to it. And when they called, we said, hey, you're a part of a test. Thanks for being part of the test. When the book's done, we'll send it to you for free. But I knew I needed a certain amount of calls to make it was real. And when it worked, it gave me more motivation to write the book. But so here's 3 things I want to say about that. One is I watch even our dear friends and successful people take 2 years, write a great book, painstaking over it, and they have that Kevin Costner from Field of Dreams. If I write it, they will come, right? And they won't. You could Google it, but the stat is in Barnes & Noble, only 5% of the books sell over 1,000 copies, right? So how many great books are in there that people took years, extracted their life story, their pain, their like everything, and they just said, I'll write it. They might even got a publishing deal, but nothing happens. So I don't think it's a must that while you're writing, like as I'm writing the book, I'm like, oh, that would be a great hook. And I have 2 pages always. When I'm writing, either my phone in my notes section or on my computer, I will go, oh God, I gotta lean in this. That's gotta be a hook. And then, so I will, the whole time I'm writing, I'm thinking of the marketing plan and thinking how this aligns, because at the end of the day, we can write great books, but we don't impact people's lives unless they buy them. That's probably the best advice you gave, and I would suggest to anybody, as much effort and energy you're putting into writing the book, you really got to double that on how to sell the book.
Yeah. So my other question I had for you is, I know when Millionaire Success Habits came out, and all your books prior to that were all primarily sold through infomercials, right?
Yes.
That was the platform, the distribution channel. And this one came out and you had the infomercial, but it wasn't like 100% in on the infomercial. You guys stepped back and it took you a while to figure out the whole internet thing. And then you went and sold, close to 1 million copies now through online. I'd love to talk about just that process and what you learned in the process, because I think a lot of most people don't have the background, first off, on TV, and they only have this internet, and they still can't figure it out. Like, what were the things you learned in that journey to figure out how to sell?
So you know where I think I have an unfair advantage? I have an unfair advantage because TV is brutal, and it's brutally expensive, right? Like, when I hear people say, oh man, I've been testing ads all week, and they're like, man, I put $3,000 into this ad, it's still not converting. Like,
you laugh.
I'm like, are you joking? Like, an infomercial, you could be 150 grand in before you know you get one order, right? You got to produce a great show, hire talent, get it edited. You got to make a deal with the stations. You got to spend 20, 30 grand to know if you got a winner. You got to book that media way out in advance. You got to hire a call center to answer every phone call. You got to write a script for the upsells and get them to convert. Like, the complexity, I didn't know anything different, so I didn't know it was complex at the time. And now when I was late to online because my infomercials had done so well. I was ignoring social media up until 3 years ago, right? But when I went over and went into social media, it just seemed so easy to me. Like, I could test something today and know tomorrow. Like, you're complaining? Like, I did marketing through smoke signals and horse and buggy. Like, and you're complaining because you got to spend $100 on a Facebook ad? So what I think it gave me, Russell, and I think it gave me marketing stamina. Like, I know it's eventually going to work. There's zero doubts in my mind. I just know I got to get through sometimes a lot of what doesn't work to get to what does. And we all know that, but I just think everybody gives up way too easy. So I'll give you, 5 books in a row were all real estate based. Real estate was my life and changed my life. And now I wrote a book, Millionaire Success Habits, because I wanted to give people the habits for success. And I have to tell you, when we launched it, a bunch of friends jumped in, did pretty well. But then when the friends were gone and I wanted to make it evergreen, I'm not kidding you, I was probably 4 months in, selling 200 books a week. And it just wasn't working. And I'm like, I have to be honest, I started questioning. I'm like, maybe everybody knows me as the real estate guy. But like, if they knew me, they knew I'm personal growth. I'm about self-education. And I'm like, maybe it's that. And I started telling myself, and this gave me more empathy for people who struggle. I started telling myself the things that I bet you most people do when it comes to marketing. That's only for the big people like Russell, and Facebook's new algorithm screwed you up, or YouTube, man, you got to have this. And like, we come up, because I started feeling it. Yeah. And then I just dug back in. I'm like, no, it's an amazing book. But there was a moment I just tried enough ads. So I want to share something. We went months selling a couple hundred books a week. And in one day, we went to 1,000 books in a week. And then the next day, we were on track for 3,000. By the 5th day, we were at 1,000 to 2,000 books a day. So it went like this, and then like this, right? So the part I want to share is, the book cover didn't change, the title didn't change, the words didn't change, our landing page didn't change, our funnel didn't even change. Nothing changed except the messaging in the ads. But it took me probably 50 ads and 4 months.
You got the message right.
And then I got the message right. And for me, what the message was with Millionaire Success Habits was the truth. It's like, how many magical money machines have you looked into, bought, and how's that working for you? And maybe if you have the greatest opportunity in the world, it didn't work out for you. Why? Not because of the tactics, not even because of the strategy, because you didn't have a mindset for success. Why do people that hit lotto go broke? Because they had the money, the resources, but they didn't have the mindset to handle that kind of money. So I said, all Millionaire Success Habits is it goes upstream and anchors a foundation for success that I learned through myself and surrounded by great people. And that new messaging, and I've done a million variations of that, it just resonated.
That was the one.
And all of a sudden it was just like, the team was like, dude, we sold 1,000 books last night.
What just happened?
Dude, what happened? Like, and it's like, the algorithms didn't change. It was just that. And yeah.
It was crazy. This was with our book with ClickFunnels. We had the same thing. Like, when we first launched it, it was a dud. And I couldn't figure out why. And I was like trying to fix the funnels, everything. And it was like, try number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And like number 6 is when I got the message right. And it was just like, as soon as that happened, it was just like, just took off. And we went from hardly any sales at all to within 7 to 14 days of me nailing the message, we passed $1 million in sales. It was just like, again, software didn't change, the process, it was just the messaging. I think most people give up before they ever get great.
And you know what most people say to me if someone has a book that doesn't sell? They're like, maybe just people don't want a book about this. Like, and that's a delusion, right? Like, we're delusioned to think it's the product, it's the book. And, man, I should have named it. I've heard people say, maybe the title was kind of janky. I'm like, no, it wasn't. I read the book. It's amazing. You're not elaborating that message in a way where people see the value. And you just got to have the stamina to keep going.
Dean, let's talk about distribution. How do you, it's obviously evolved and shifted throughout time. I think even most people's minds, Amazon's like where books are at. But for me personally, we still sell most of our books not through Amazon. I'm curious, like, your thoughts on how it's shifted.
What I think is Amazon can be, great Amazon sales can be the byproduct of good direct response marketing, right? So we were number one at one point with Millionaire Success Habits. We were number one in 3 categories, like entrepreneurship and 2 other ones. And we weren't pushing anybody to Amazon. It's because we were running so many ads that the people would see the ads and they'd go to Amazon and get the book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's just face it, book distribution has changed. It's changed because it hasn't changed. It changed, Borders went out of business. Some people don't even know what Borders is. Barnes & Noble, who knows how long they can last, right? Because they haven't changed their model. Book publishers haven't changed their model in a long time to keep up with growing trends, right? They're looking for book publishers are looking for the influencers that already have the following to latch on and give them that. So I think the world has changed. The world is ready to buy books direct. I'll just tell you, my strategy is similar as yours. I write a book, create the hardcover, the look, feel as if it's a published book, right? And it's the quality of a published book, because I published 4 of them. But we run through direct response, right? So running ads, driving them to a page, whether that's free plus shipping, and we give great value. And then if people buy additional products and services from us, if we can cover the ad spend within a week or 2, then that's a winning campaign, because a byproduct is lots of Amazon sales. Byproduct is people are introduced to our company and what we stand for, and they can buy more stuff for us. And the cool part is you can get direct distribution, right? I've had a distribution company doing all my printing and all my sending out books for 12 years, right? And that's readily available. So the mystery of the book industry is no more mystery, right? You could create your own Amazon account. You could run an ad on Facebook. Yeah, so I just think that world has changed. Now, I understand if you want a New York Times bestseller title, you got to go through traditional. I have a couple New York Times bestsellers, so I don't need to do that. And then I'll tell you the last thing, what happened with Millionaire Success Habits with Hay House, who I think are great guys. Reed's an awesome dude over there. I sold about 500,000 copies on my own, and then Reed came to me and said, let me publish after 500,000 copies. And I said, sure, give me a deal, but I'm not changing what I do. I'm still gonna sell direct response. He goes, yeah, do what you do, brother. I'll just put it in every bookstore. So now that I went and published with him, if you go to any Amazon store right now, Millionaire Success Habits is still on the top business books. It's been on for like almost a year now. But we just do what we do, and so we got the best of both worlds on that one.
So one of the new things in our funnel we'll be testing, we did this with our supplement funnel back in the day. We found that a lot of people were buying supplements, they were older, so they were scared of buying online. So our exit pop was like, hey, if you're nervous to buy online, click here to go to our Amazon store and buy it. And they're like, oh, they feel comfortable with Amazon. I don't know why, and for the last 2 books I haven't done this, but the new book funnel, when you come, if you leave, the exit pop is pushing back to the Amazon store to get Amazon Prime.
I'm going to put that in my notes as soon as you're done.
I know, I'm so excited for that. Anyway, we're redoing all 3 book funnels right now,
that's
like
killer.
I've been
That's
geeking
great.
out so deep on it. It's going to be amazing.
That's awesome.
Anyway, no, I think a lot of people, and I get this from just even friends I know. Like, people still buy books. Like, a book's still a thing. Like, like they don't. A lot of people don't believe it's still a tangible. Like, this is the business model. Like, I watch stuff on YouTube. I read blogs or whatever. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, are books still the right vehicle? Are they going to be around long term, or what's your thoughts on it?
I think so. I mean, maybe because I still listen to a book about every 2 weeks, a book on audio. I just think there's so many treasures in a book, and still to this day, I've been blessed to have a lot of accomplishments, right? Started 13 different companies. I've done more things than I could ever imagine possible. I bought thousands of houses, like multiple, all these different things. But still, if someone introduces me on a podcast, you know what they'll say?
New York Times bestselling
Multiple
author.
New York Times bestselling author, Dean Graziosi. There's just something that gives so much credibility to a book, because people know you have to know your stuff. You got to sit down, take the time, effort, and energy to write it. It's not just a quick, and I love quick vlogs or blogs or YouTube content and podcasts. I love all that, but there's some like underlying value, credibility of a book. And maybe that's just our age and older. I'm a little older than you, so I lump me in with you. But maybe that's our age and older, and maybe a next generation won't value it as much. But listen, Millionaire Success Habits heading towards 1 million copies, and I think Underdog Advantage will do the same. Yeah. I think people still want it. They just want good ones.
I had similar. I've been publishing for a decade, 10 years in my career. I've been doing blogs and video and podcast, and like, you know, as prolific as I could be with as much stuff. And I was sitting at dinner one night with one of my friends. We were watching our kids play. We were Carl's Jr. and our kids play on the playground. We were hanging out watching them, and he said, "Do you know the difference between you and like Tony Robbins or Brendan Bouchard or these other guys?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I feel like you're same level. Your content's good." He's like, "But they seem more legit than you because they all have a book." This is one of my best friends, and I was just like, "Huh." And that was the night, like literally that night is the night that I started writing my book.
Yeah, so I believe that to be true.
I don't get it. Like, I've been doing all this stuff. I've been putting my heart and soul out there, but there's legitimacy of like, this is someone that's willing to put in the effort to get something like that. It's that next level of like of determination, of mastery, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so I would say the last part I would say this. I think everybody should write a book. But if you want to get in the information age, you want to help other people, there's faster ways.
For sure.
You might want to get in with doing a monthly Zoom call, a monthly live training online, right? Do a workshop, do a mastermind, gain the capabilities. You'll be able to rehearse it in real time. Yeah. You know, you get people on a podcast or you get people on a live Zoom call and you say stuff, it's like jokes, like funny jokes, not so funny. Throw away the not so funny or the not so impactful things. And after a year of doing training like that, you have all the content for your book. And you get to do the best of the best in your book.
I always tell people, when I wrote my first book, I was in the business 10 years, and I always tell people, like, why didn't you write it earlier? I'm like, I wasn't ready earlier. Like, I had to learn it, and I had to earn it. And I would say, it took me 10 years to earn this book. This book took me 2 years of me, like, geeking out, studying, going deeper than you ever do to, like, earn the book. And I think you're right. I think a lot of times it's getting out there first, doing the short form stuff to, like, find your voice, to master it, to, like, to get mastery. And then it's like, there will be a time where it's like, okay, now you're ready. Now let's put it into a format that'll live beyond yourself.
Yeah, totally agree.